Hello and welcome to Guinness World Records. I'm Ian Wright and have we got a show for you tonight. Here's a taste of some of the amazing record attempts you'll be seeing.
This man gets a mouthful of molten lead. And Chester Cable turns the tables for us at breakneck speed.
But first you're going to meet the lady who'll bring us these amazing films of record attempts from across the globe. Kate Charman. What do you got for us tonight, Kate?
Well, Ian, the attempts I've got lined up for us tonight range from feats of precision to acts of monumental madness.
We find a climber who's really going up in the world, with nothing to stop him if he falls.
Let's go back to our American studio. If you find your Saturday night curry a bit hot, you'll envy this guy, because he's got an asbestos mouth.
I'm here with Mr. Yim Byung-nam from the Korean province of Gyeonggi-do. Mr. Yim cannot speak English, and so Mr. Ko is here with us to translate. Mr. Yim is a 7th degree black belt in Hapkido. It's a form of martial arts devoted to controlling one's mental and physical energy. And he will be attempting a feat that takes mind over matter to the next level. Mr. Yim will take molten lead so hot that it can do this. And actually place that metal inside his mouth. Now we are told that this causes no pain, but how can Mr. Yim do this without burning his tongue?
혀를 대지 않고 이런 일을 어떻게 할 수가 있느냐고요.
기를 이어가지고 모든 입에다가 기를 이어가지고.
His Hapkido training allows him to control pain.
Now, what was it like the very first time that you put this molten metal in your mouth?
조금 뜨겁죠.
It was hot.
Doesn't this red-hot molten lead, which is still cooking the bacon on our plate here, doesn't this cause any permanent damage to your tongue and your mouth to do this repeatedly?
지장은 없습니다.
No permanent damage.
All right, it's time for Mr. Yim to attempt a new Guinness record for the hottest piece of metal held in the mouth. We're using a special industrial thermometer to obtain the official temperature. It's usually used in steel welding. Our Guinness judge, Michael Feldman, is going to take the reading. So, Michael, if you want to put the thermometer in that lead in its molten state now, I'll try to give folks an idea of, now, 900 degrees. That's 900 degrees Fahrenheit and still climbing. 908. Now it seems to have plateaued at 908. Somewhere between 910 degrees and 910 degrees. The temperature is 910 degrees. Here's how it will work. Mr. Yin will place a piece of molten lead the size of a silver dollar onto this brass spatula. He is then going to transfer the lead onto his tongue. He will hold it inside his mouth for as many seconds as he can. Our Guinness judges are going to keep track of the time the lead is held inside his mouth, and Mr. Yim will then spit out the lead onto this board. What Mr. Yim is about to do is extremely dangerous. He has spent a lifetime perfecting this skill. It should never be tried at home in any way, shape, or form. We have emergency medical technicians standing by in the event that there is a problem here with Mr. Yim. Should he require life-saving assistance, they are standing by. Are you ready, sir?
준비됐습니까?
예.
Yes.
Good luck, and please be careful.
잘 하십시오. 조심하십시오.
This is his martial arts ritual. It helps him focus his mind and channel all his strength into his mouth. These are the heat protective gloves that he's now putting on. You can see nothing is in his mouth, nothing to protect it. He's pouring the lead into the spoon now. This is not a trick.
It is in his mouth. It is in his mouth unequivocally. Oh my God. Unofficially, 14 seconds you held that molten lead in your mouth. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I never would have believed it. Incredible. The Guinness judges have confirmed your time. 14 seconds in your mouth. Mr. Yim, you now hold the Guinness record for holding the hottest piece of metal in your mouth for 14 seconds. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Yim now.
If you think Rich Ely's Zorbing record was mad, have a look at the bloke that Kate's found.
Yes, Ian, the man you're about to meet is no stranger to danger. He's got sheer guts, with sheer being the operative word. The late Dan Osborne died recently in a climbing accident, but in his lifetime he was a legend in the sport and gained fame inventing rope free flying. Tied to the end of a rope and anchored to a structure, Dan hurled himself off bridges, cliffs and mountains, looking for that extra adrenaline rush.
I can do a lot of things for an adrenaline rush, but I choose this because it's the only way to get like pure raw adrenaline, you know, and fear all together in one.
Cameraman Eric Pullman filmed and documented Dan's daring accomplishments for 8 years.
Dan was a wild man, creative and bold and exuberant, but he was also methodical, patient, and precise in his technical mastery of the equipment involved and his understanding of the dynamics of every challenge that he undertook.
Dan was dedicated to perfecting his phenomenal skills, and his expertise as a world-class climber and rigger were in great demand. He trained the elite US Navy SEALs Commando Fighting Unit and taught safety workers how to scale buildings. Dan became determined on setting 3 new rope free-flying records. He leapt 200 feet suspended across a canyon, 300 feet off a cliff, and an astonishing 650 feet off a bridge.
The difference between rope free flying, which is what I do, and say bungee jumping, for instance, is that a bungee is a big rubber band that just kind of boing and stretches out and slows you down very slowly, where I use a climbing rope which is made of nylon, and what it does is it lets you go all the way to the deck and stops you just before impact.
Rope free flying is where Dan gained his fame, but it didn't stop there. He became the first person to climb a rushing waterfall, fighting against raging currents and freezing water.
I like to invent new sports because I can do things that no one else has ever done. No one believes that I can really do it until I come back alive with a smile on my face.
Dan was always looking for new thrills and ways of pushing himself to the limit. He founded a perilous sport called free climbing, where climbers use no equipment or safety rope.
One of the boldest things I ever saw Dan do was free solo rock climbing. He would climb up these routes that were so steep and so hard, he'd be hanging by his fingertips and his toes, and that's it. And these were so steep that once he started, he couldn't turn back. It was summit or plummet.
Like everything he did, he mastered the sport and became one of the top free climbers in the world. But that wasn't enough for Dan. He had to find a way of taking this sport to new extremes, and he did. He added a more dangerous element: speed. He became the first person in the world to speed climb, and on Thursday, 29th of May 1997, he set out to establish a new record. He would attempt to race up the face of a 400-foot sheer granite wall in 6 minutes. How fast is that? Well, it would take a two-person team using safety gear 2 hours to climb this wall if they were very good. Dan aimed to do it without safety gear in an astonishing 6 minutes. 400 feet in 6 minutes flat. No safety harness, no ropes, no excuses.
It's really dangerous, there's no doubt about it, because you're moving so fast that you only really have time to check your footholds and stuff.
He steadies his nerves. And he's off. What you're about to see defies belief. Dan quickly reads the face of the mountains. Jamming his hands into the crevices, he uses them like anchors to pull himself up. All that stands between him and the ground is air. Any mistake, and Dan could come crashing down. About halfway up the mountain, Dan misses his mark and slips. But his other hand is anchored, narrowly saving his life. In many places, Dan is perched on a razor-thin ledge. 2/3 of the way up, Dan passes a climber who is struggling, even using ropes and gear. At 300 feet, Dan faces his biggest challenge. He has to leap from a ledge and grab hold of an overhang. For this brief moment, he will be airborne. This is a very dangerous move, known as a double dino. Here it comes. Dan cheats death as he scales the final 50 feet of the mountain, pushing through tiredness, and reaches the summit in 5 minutes and 52 seconds. Yeah! An incredible new record for speed free climbing. Let's take another look in slow motion when Dan went completely airborne. As you can see, Dan's entire body was suspended in mid-air. Dan Osman, a remarkable Guinness record holder who always confronted nature's challenges head-on.